they came out. They came out here from the west. They was out in the Dakotas. Is where old John, when he come over from Belgium, he settled out there in the Dakotas. They farmed out there in the Dakotas. But then later years, they moved here to New York State, and that's how all the boys got around here. But they farmed in the Dakotas.
So you talked about the store that I remember being built, but when was that built roughly? The one-story store.
It had to be like it had to be. In the late 30s.
Late 30s?
In the late 30s.
And then did they turn that first store into apartment?
Yes.
Okay.
So, I believe. Because I can remember. I remember when I'm just trying to place in my mind what it was. I think I'm right.
Were there ever, so there weren't two stores together?
No.
Just one?
No, through the war, when the war was on, which was 1941, we was in the new store. We used the new store already.
Okay, in 41.
41.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that new store had to be built. Probably sometime after, I bet you I'm right, within a year or two, right after, somewhere after 35.
Did your father ever tell you about the evaporator or a Maccabee Hall across from the Grange Hall?
I remember the evaporator.
Okay.
I don't remember. I remember the building, but I don't remember it running.
Okay.
And well, the building sat there for quite a while until they took it down.
Was that between Tom Henry's in the corner?
Yeah.
Okay.
That side of the road. Yeah.
On the north side?
Yeah.
Who owned it? Did you know when it was just sitting there?
I don't know. But I remember it sat there. Well, pretty much all through the 30s.
Did your father ever mention a Maccabee Hall?
No.
Did your father ever talk about the Reed's Corners Hotel?
Oh, yeah.
What'd your father or anybody tell you about the hotel when that was going?
Well, I think the Partisans ran the hotel, maybe. There was a bar. They had a bar.
Okay.
They had a bar in there, and because I remember being in, I remember when it was, of course, long after it was closed, I remember being in that building. And the bar was upstairs, in the upstairs room was a bar. I remember a big long bar, and they had an organ that was sitting over in the room, in the bar room. The big organ was sitting there in the corner. Now this is 1938, maybe 39, 38, 39. And Margaret Burns' daughter, she was in there with us. Glenn Freer and I went in there one afternoon, and Mary Jane Burns, she was Margaret Burns' daughter. We was looking for Jim Partis because George had a room in there, that's what it was. George Partis had a room in there. He lived in the old hotel. And we went in there looking for George, and while we were in there, we asked Jim if we could look around, or George if we could look around. Well, sure, look around. So we came on that big organ sitting in the corner, and Mary Jane, she could play, and she sat down. She was a girl then about probably 12, and she could play that organ. Mary Jane Burns.
Do you know anybody that has a picture of the hotel?
I don't. There's got to be one around somewhere, but I don't know where.
When did they have booze there until? Do you know?
Well, God, probably up until Prohibition, I imagine.
Up till Prohibition?
Yeah, I imagine.
Was there a candy store in there or something too? Did they sell some stuff from there?
That I couldn't tell you.
Was it a two-story building?
2 stories. Big upstairs, big upstairs. A lot of rooms. That was a big building. I mean, that was big.
Now, I can't think, I know Reed's Corners used to be a lot bigger, and they had the blacksmith shops and stuff, but why would they need a hotel in a little community like Reed's Corners?
I know.
Who would stay there?
Unless it might have been a stagecoach stop. I bet you it was.
Is
Very likely it was a stagecoach stop. Because this here was the laneway then. You know, the house up here on the corner, you know, right here on the Lake.
That was a stagecoach stop,
Stagecoach
wasn't it?
stop. And then on down the road on the right-hand side, the big house up there on the right.
Baldwin's Corners?
Yep, that was a stagecoach stop. So I bet you Reed's Corner
Yeah.
definitely had to be, yeah.
There probably wasn't, that was the way from Rushville to Canandaigua,
Yeah,
and Penyan to Canandaigua?
yeah, and probably this road here, I know it was probably dirt lane, of course. Probably, well, all the traffic from the north, you know, from that area, came up 247.
What was it called before 247, you know?
And I don't know.
You talked to me earlier about Diamond Dick. Did he live in the old Schuyler place?
Yep.
Was this before Schuyler?
I would say so.
Well, how did he get his nickname, and tell me about your getting tobacco for him and meeting him at the Rock that's over at my place.
They called him Diamond Dick because my mother said when we came down here to Canandaigua in 1920, his name was Dick Farrington, and she used to see him go by a lot with his horse and buggy, and he always had a nice little horse, and he had like on a Saturday afternoon, he'd go to the town, he'd be decked out in his best clothes and jewelry all over, and his chain across his vest, you know, the front of his vest, and diamonds on his finger, and that's how he got the name Diamond Dick. He was a great guy for putting on a big air.
Now, he lived where the Schuyler place
Yeah,
was.
the little house that they turned down.
Did he live with Lottie Farrington?
Lottie was his wife.
Well, Lottie was his wife.
Lottie was Dick's wife.
Okay,
She died, she was crippled.
okay.
She was crippled. And she must have died. She died in the early 30s, like, oh God. She must have died maybe by 36, right in that area. And then he, after she died, he took dose of rat poison. And
How long after she died did he do that?
within probably a year or two,
Really?
my sister Margaret found him
Really?
laying in the doorway. And he'd been there for a day or two. And his brother-in-law thought he was drunk and left him lay there.
For a day or two, huh?
A day or two. And he went drunk. And my sister Margaret found him because her and Dick always thought the world of my sister Margaret, you know, and so she checked in on him one day because she had seen him, and that's where she found him. He had took rat poison. He's the guy, he'd always wait for me in the morning when I walked to school. He'd want tobacco about a couple days a week. He'd give me 11 cents, I think, for tobacco, and I'd come down to the store and get it at night. I would drop it off for him.
On your way home from
On the way
school?
home, yeah.
What kind of tobacco?
It was usually Sir Walter Raleigh or Prince Albert.
Now, this is pipe tobacco?
Pipe tobacco.
And he'd meet you by that rock?
He'd sit on that big rock.
That rock was under a hickory tree, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
He'd sit on that big rock and wait for me, and then at night when I come down the road there about 3:30, 4:45, he'd be sitting on the rock waiting for me. He was a nice guy. I liked him. He taught the world to me. He used to, his wife would make, she made a lot of fried cakes. A lot of nights at school, he'd sneak a fried cake out of the house and he'd have it wrapped up in newspaper. And when he'd nail me on the way home from school and he'd slip that fried cake in my pocket.
Bet that tasted good.
Oh yeah, they were good.
That was a fried cake like a donut?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, a lot of nights, if she had just made a fresh batch, he made sure he was out on the road to give me one. Yeah.
Now do you ever remember when that stone was dragged up there?
I don't remember. It's been there since I could remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember the blacksmith shops? And were either of them open when you were a boy?
The blacksmith shop down here, the first one, the other side of the bridge. The other side of the creek, right?
Yep.
That was George Partis.
Okay.
I can remember going in there with my dad to have our horses shod. We had one horse that we used to keep shoes on because he was our buggy horse.
On the road?
On the road. And we used to go, I don't remember too much. But my mother said yes, when you were small, she said, I used to take you to town in the buggy. That was our horse Prince. He was he was a farm horse. We used him for cultivating. He was a small horse, and he had the little feet, you know. And we used to like to use him. We used him on the cultivator between the rows because he didn't step on nothing. And he was our buggy horse. And he's the one we used to put the shoes on. And I can remember being down here with my dad. I was probably 4 or 5 years old, so that would be 1930. And George Partis would put shoes on that horse. I can remember that. That's 1930.
Was it just a little shop there on that little triangle?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I can remember it faced the road. The door faced the road. I remember that.
Was there another blacksmith shop over near where you live though now? Wasn't there another blacksmith shop over there?
Not that I can recall. No, I don't believe so.
I think there was another one by the name of Fundy. John Fundy.
I've heard Phil Freer mention John Fundy.
I think he lived over near you and Missy Flynn and over in there somewhere.
Yeah, I think I've heard Phil mention that.
Well, what was in that lot between you and Flynn's? You ever hear that there was anything there?
No.
Did you ever hear that at one time there was a cooper shop just east of John Lombardi's house? Did you ever hear that there was a cooper shop there?
East of John's house, no?
In that field.
Is that right?
But years and years and years ago.
Yeah, no, I never heard that.
Wasn't there a Dr. Shannon that lived in Reed's Corners, or would that be way before your time?
I don't remember a doctor.
Okay.
In Reed's Corners, no.
Was there any businesses other than Washburn's Garage and the blacksmith and the store that you remember ever operating?
No. I don't. I remember the apple evaporator sitting there, but I don't remember. It was a drying house for apples, but I don't remember the thing ever running.
Do you ever remember gypsies camping around?
Yeah.
Where did they camp? And
I don't remember really camping, but back in the early 30s, there was a lot of them around here.
would they stay very long?
Well, they was usually passing through with their horse and wagon.
Okay.
They'd have a horse and wagon. They was usually passing through because I remember one time that was where the Hartsey place, that's where Mike Bennett lives now. I guess Harry had just dug his potatoes and he had about 10 bushel of potatoes sitting on the front porch. And when he looked again, all his potatoes was gone. The gypsies had them. They said the gypsies stole them.
Sure.
And that was, well, in the early 30s. But yeah. So I don't know. That's all I know about them. But you had to watch them when they stopped at your place, you know. You had to watch them because you don't know what they was going to do.
Steal stuff.
They'd steal stuff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Did they claim they wanted to work for you for a day or two, or?
Yeah, probably. Make some excuse to confront you, you know.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But I don't, they didn't last too long that I recall. It was in the early 30s. Because I remember when it happened, of course, everybody around here talking about, how the gypsy stole all of Harson's potatoes.
Hmm.
So nobody did anything about it. So they just
I asked you last night on the phone, you remember hearing about when they were getting some gravel out and they found some Indian graves in back of the old parsonage?
yes.
Do you know where they found those? Was it south of the parsonage or was it closer to 247?
It was right. It was right in back of the parsonage.
Okay.
I remember the
Was it along that stream?
back to the north from the stream.
Okay.
Back to the north.
Okay.
Is where they found it. Of course, they were digging back in there with steam shovels. They
Okay.
had steam shovels in there where they dig it, and that's where they found it. So that would have to be 19, probably as early as 1933.
The house that you live in, did you buy from the Mileses?
The house that I bought, no, the house that I live now,
Yeah.
I bought from Harold Nash.
Nash.
Harold Nash.
Do you ever remember a George Miles?
I don't remember him, but I've heard of him. George Miles, that was his mother that lived here in the big house.
Right in the corner?
Mamie Miles,
Miles,
the big
okay.
house. Well, that was his mother. George Miles was her son. He got killed in World War I over Germany.
Okay.
But Ernie Flay told me that. He got shot, the sniper got him. And that was George Miles, and that was Mamie's son.
You knew Mamie Miles then?
Yeah, I remember her. I remember
Okay.
her. Oh, yeah, I remember her in the early 30s. Well, she was living there when I was just going to school. She was there 4 or 5 years. She probably died in the mid-30s.
I think Mamie Miles's father was Albert Miles, who fought in the Civil War.
Oh, yeah, I could.
You ever remember hearing about Levi Cole?
I've heard of Levi.
He had one arm. I think he lived where Margaret Burns used to live.
Yeah.
Were there any fellows around here from World War I besides Charlie Crow that you remember?
From
World War I?
World War I, no. Of course, Ernie Flay, he fought for Canada, in World War I. He was
really?
over in Germany, and he was over in, what was the big battle over there?
Verdun?
Yeah.
Or the Somme?
Yeah, that one you just mentioned, yeah, he was there. Yeah, Ernie saw a lot of action. Of course, he was in the Canadian Army, because when he come over here from England, he didn't come here, he went to Canada.
Okay.
So,
Now, Ernie Flay lived on the east side, down across from where Knapp's lived back in the 60s.
yeah, he lived there. Oh, God. Yeah, he lived there. Oh, God, he lived there a long time.
Does he have any family still around?
He never had no kids. No, he never had no kids. And, no, they never had kids. They came down here. They was up in Canada, out in Manitoba.
Oh, okay.
That's where they came from. And when they came down here about 1930, they landed down in New Jersey. And he worked down in Jersey for a couple of years. And then in the early 30s, like 33 or something, he came up here.
Bought a little farm?
Yeah, and there was a guy named down here, his name was Wood. They lived at Ernie Flay's house, where Ernie lived there. His name was Wood. And I think that was his mother that got hit in the road out there with a car that night. Was that his mother? Kit Wood, they called her Kit Wood. A car hit her and killed her.
It wasn't Emma Deer, was it? There was a Mrs. Wasn't Claude Deer's mother
Claude Deer.
killed?
That was her. Her name was, yeah. But the woman that got killed, I thought was Kit.
Could have been a second woman.
They called her Kit Wood, I think.
Okay.
And Claude Deer, If his name was Deer, my God, that's funny now.
Huh. Can you think of some humorous things that you remember from the 30s or 40s or 50s around here? Anything that jumps out at you as kind of colorful or interesting?
Well, I can remember the dances down here in the Grange Hall. That was all through the 40s.
Okay.
All through the 40s.
Were these round and square dances?
Round and square dances.
Was this before the Country Gentlemen, Herb and George's band?
No, I don't believe so, because see. Well, it could have been. It had to be just maybe, yeah, just before. Because all through the 30s, like the late 30s, they used to have the Woodhull Boys, and the Woodhull Boys, they was all around here. You know who the Woodhull Boys were?
No, never heard of them.
Woodhull, New York, and every Saturday noon they were on the radio.
Really?
But they went to all these granges all around through this area. Everybody was just clamoring to get them, and they were good. Because I can remember, I can hear them yet. I can hear the guy calling down here, Woodhull Boys. And then right after that is when the Country Gentlemen came forward.
The Woodhull Boys, I'd never heard of them.
You never heard of them? No. Oh, God, they was from Woodhull, New York. And every Saturday noon at 12 o'clock for an hour, they'd be on. And everybody made sure we was in the house at Saturday noon. And they would get the fiddle going, and the one guy would holler, "Are you ready, Hezzy?" And he'd, yep, and boy, and they would take off. And what music they made.
Huh.
Oh,
now, Woodhull, is that down near Hornell?
Yep.
Greenwood?
Woodhull, Jasper, and Campbell, that
yeah, boy, they came up from a ways then.
Oh, yeah, and they'd be down the Hopewell Grange, here, Canandaigua Grange, out on the Paddleford Road, Cheshire. Every weekend they were somewhere. And we had them down here in the Grange. The Woodhull Boys. Oh, God.
Huh. Had to be something.
Oh, they were good. Yeah,
now, if you don't want to mention any names, that's fine.
Yeah.
But you told me a couple years ago about a woman from Reed's Corners who found out that her daughter was seeing a sailor over to Sampson and she took her life.
Yes.
How did she do that? You remember?
Shot herself.
Shot herself.
Yeah. Yeah, that was,
You don't have to mention the name if you...
That was in the early 40s.
Early 40s. Did the daughter stay around here?
No.
She left?
No.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. She's still around, but she's not in this area. She never came back.
Do you remember any real interesting fires or crimes back in the 30s or 40s or 50s? I know where there's some barn fires, like the Baldwin farm and that type of thing. Do you remember of any big doings around here?
No. I remember the little house on, that had to be on the Mumby Road. On the Mumby Road, right there in the little house where Johnny King used to live.
Okay.
That little house there.
Yep.
Well, I remember that burnt down 10th of November, 1936, I believe it was. Because Bud Freer and I was out. We were skunking. It was the first night of skunk season, and we were out skunking that night. And we got done about 9:30 at night. We were sitting on the Royer's little brooder house there, resting for a minute about 9:30. It was warm November night, I looked down towards 5 and 20, and I thought the sky looked kind of funny, kind of light. And I looked again, and I said to Bud, "My God, that's a fire." We looked, and a couple minutes later, we could see flames. So we ran across the road. My brother, Rennie and Charlie, they was in bed, but friend, he had his car, he had his first car, then he had an old 28 Chevy. So we jumped in and down the road we went, and we got down there, and their house was all afire, the windows was popping out, the shotgun shells was going off.
Whose house was it?
Bill Pipp and Martha Pipp, and his wife was Margaret. That was Martha Fleener. Fleener lives over here on County Road 18.
Okay.
She died here a year ago,
Yep.
8 months ago. That was her father. That was her home.
Martha Burgess?
No. Her name was Lawrence. She got married again. She married Johnson.
Oh.
She got me out. Pip was Pip. Bill Pip was her mother and father. Pip was
Okay.
her father. And then she married a guy named Lawrence Fleener. And Fleener, he died. Her kids they go by Fleener.
Okay.
And then she married Lester Johnson, was it? Lester Johnson? Lester? He died here a year or two ago?
Okay, on the north side, there?
No. As you're going down County Road 18, you know you cross the creek there, there's a little creek there before you get to Yahtzee?
Yeah.
That house
Okay.
right there on the right.
All right.
She's a woman that always had a lot of yard sales and garage sales.
Yeah.
Well, that was the daughter.
Were
That was
they
right.
there when the house was burning?
No, there was nobody home. He worked nights out to the list at that time.
Okay.
This was 1936, I think, 36,
Okay.
37 maybe. Because I was still going to Reed's Corner School.
Okay.
'Cause I remember telling Dick Farrington on the way to school that morning that Bill Pipp's house burnt down last night. And he said to me, I remember distinctly what he said. He said, "What's the matter? Was he drunk?" I said, "Well, I don't know about that, because Bill, he drank, but he wasn't a drinker." He worked that night, and it was in the fall, and like I say, November the 10th. And he came home that night on his break, I guess on his supper break, and I guess he threw a couple of wood chunks in the chunk stove, and sparks must have got on the carpet or something. And he didn't know, of course. He jumped in the car and went back to work, and his wife, she was out Canandaigua with some of her relatives, and then at night after work, he'd pick her up, and then they'd come home. And Bill was a great guy for hunting. You know, he loved to hunt. He had all kinds of guns in the house, and shells and everything. And when we got down there, Lawrence and myself and my brothers, Charlie and Rennie, the windows were popping out, and the shells was going off. We knew there was nobody home. We knew Bill was working.
Uh-huh.
And somebody called the fire company, I guess, and after a while they come, but it was so far gone they couldn't save it. They went right to the ground. It was just a little house. You know.
Where was the fire company?
Probably Canandaigua, I guess.
Wow.
When we got there, Ruth's case, well, if you saw my school picture from the Reach Corner School.
I've got that at home.
Yeah, well, Ruth's case is in that picture. She's in that picture from the old school. And of course, the cases had moved away from here. They was living out Canandaigua then. Ruth's case then, she was a girl. Yeah, she must have been about 15. So I was probably 12. And she was standing there in the yard with her boyfriend. Her and her boyfriend were standing there in the yard in the driveway. They had saw it from 5 and 20. I guess it was her boyfriend. She was with this kid. I mean, and they were standing in the driveway watching the burn. When we got there and jumped out of the car, and Ruth and this young fellow are standing there in the driveway watching the house burn. Well, what else could they do? They had, so they figured, well, somebody will call the company, the fire company or something, or somebody's going to do something. So and I remember that. Ruth was there. And, Ruth is still alive. When my school picture, when that picture came out in the paper, that school picture came out in the paper, I got a phone call one day from this girl down in, worked in a restaurant down the Waterloo, and she said this guy on that morning, that Sunday morning, I guess it was, he brought the paper in, and this Gilbert Case was in that picture from the Reach Corner School, and he knew that her name was Case, and come to find that picture was her father. She lives in the Seneca Falls, So she called me on the phone one day, and she told me who she was. She said, Gilbert was my father. He was married twice. I said, now, are you from his first wife or his second wife? She said, I'm from his second wife.
Hmm.
And I told her where I lived and where the school was, and she said, I've got her. I ran across it the other day. I've got her. And she said, I'm coming up to see you someday. And I said, I wish you would. She said, I'd like to meet you. But she hadn't got here yet.
I saw the picture that you submitted of the class right there.
Yeah.
Do you have any pictures of the school itself without kids? Where you can see what the school looked like more.
I don't believe I do.
Huh.
I'll look again. I might.
Because I could scan it on a computer and get you the original back. What were you doing, Camiel, December 7th, 1941, when you heard about Pearl Harbor? You remember?
Oh, yeah. I remember that day, that Sunday afternoon.
You would have been 15.
Yeah, I remember that day because I walked down the Lumby Road. I was going to walk over to Glen Freer's that afternoon, and I walked down to 5 and 20. And I know when I went down, when I walked down the Lumby Road, well, just down below our barn there by the bridge, I could almost reach up and touch the wires in the snowbanks. The snow was that high. That was December 7th, 1941. Yeah, I can remember. I could, if I could reach up like that, I could have touched the telephone wires. That's how high the snow was. I remember that afternoon we went, I guess, I don't know, we just running around through the fields, I guess, and I can remember coming in the house that night and sitting there in the kitchen, which we didn't have electricity then. We didn't have electricity. And we had a little battery-powered radio. You know, had the cells with it, and you had to have a car battery. And I know I was sitting there at the kitchen table, and the little radio was sitting there, and that's the first we knew about it.
Oh, really?
About 6 o'clock at night, and he said that we're at war with Japan. And that's the first idea was knew about it.
Now, did you or Rennie, were either of you in the service?
Charlie,
Charlie,
Charlie was born in 1920, so he was just the right age, and he was working up in the city. He was working for R.T. French.
Is this your cousin or a brother?
My brother.
Brother.
He's next to me. He was next to me.
Okay.
Charlie was born in 1920, so I was born 26. He was 6 years older than me. He was working the Frenches, R.T. French, and of course he signed up for the draft, and so they called him, and I guess he knew he was going to go, so he enlisted. He knew he was going to go anyway, so he enlisted. He said, well, if I'm going to go, I might as well go now. So that's what he did. And he trained down in Fort Bragg. He'd done most of his boot camp down in Fort Bragg, and he was out in Canton, Michigan, or Wisconsin, one of them, out there somewhere. Because I remember while he was out there at the camp, he sent me a postcard one day. I tried to think the other day, where was there a camp? What camp would it have been if he was in Michigan? I can't think what the name of the camp was. He sent me a card, he knew I'd be interested in, of a swamp with about 300 muskrat houses all through it.
Really?
Yeah, I remember that card that he sent me. He was stationed there. And then he got, within 3 months, he got shipped out and went overseas in Germany. He wound up in Germany. He was in the Battle of the Bulge.
Was he really?
Yeah, he was in the Battle of the Bulge.
Was he in the infantry?
He was in the quartermaster.
Quartermaster.
In the 3rd Army under Patton.
Okay.
But he went all through the Battle of the Bulge, and I don't think he never got a scrape on him.
Well, even at the Battle of the Bulge, quartermasters and everybody had to fight, didn't they?
Oh, yeah.
At that.
Yeah. But no, he never got wounded. He was there when they liberated Dachau and Buchenwald. And,
how long has he been gone?
Oh, he died Charlie died in 72.
72.
So he's been dead,
So he died when he was only 52.
52. been down, he boarded down here with his mother-in-law, down on 247. He boarded there with his mother-in-law, and he'd been down to the Legion, because he belonged to the Legion, and he'd been down there with a couple of guys in Penn. They were drinking at the bar. And he came home, and I guess he didn't want to go in the house because he figured his mother-in-law was still up. He just got a new Chevy. And he sat in the car, he was going to sit in the car, I guess, to wait until she put the lights on and went to bed. He fell asleep and the gas got him. That's what happened.
Around 72?
In 72.
Really?
He fell asleep in the car. He had just got a brand new Chevy, but he fell asleep. He put the car inside and he fell asleep.
In the garage?
In the garage.
Uh-huh.
Dr. Buxbaum told me, he said, boy, if you've had a couple of drinks and a little bit of that carbon monoxide, he said, you're gone. That's right. Yeah, he was only 52, that's all right.
How'd you and Elaine meet?
Oh, I was celebrating my 22nd birthday, and I was out, I think I was down in Geneva that night. I think that's what it was, with a couple other guys, and we were doing the town, and she was with a couple of her sisters and three other girls, and we just met and got acquainted. And I guess next time I saw her, I made a date with her, and
You swept her off her feet.
swept her off her feet, and been together ever since.
What year was that?
1948.
48. Where's she from?
She's from Long Island City. She was
Okay.
born and raised in Long Island.
What brought her up here? What was she doing up here?
Oh, well, she lost her mother when she was 15, and she lost her father when a couple of years afterwards, she was 17. So, and didn't have too much family down there anymore, and she had one brother up here. Her older brother lived in Geneva, so she came up here. And,
She work at Chiron, or what'd she do up here?
She worked in, when she got up here, she worked in Canandaigua, the bicycle shop there on Chapin Street.
Okay,
Yeah, that's where she worked.
okay.
Yeah, and, yeah.
She take the bus from Geneva to Canandaigua?
They were living in Flint then.
Oh, okay.
She didn't live with her brother. She came up here. She lived with her brother a little bit, but then the other sister came, and the two of them, they lived together down Flint. And I guess they probably took the bus to work in the morning or whatever. Yeah, they worked there on Chapin Street. What'd they call it? Fellow King? Fellow
I
King?
knew there was a bike shop there.
Yeah, that's where she worked. There's where she worked as soon as she got up here.
Mm-hmm.
That's where she was working in 48. Yeah.
Now, you worked at a lot of different factories, didn't you? Cannon factories?
Well, yeah, and, well, I worked for Royer there. I worked for Royer, I guess from the time I was 17 till I was about, it must have been 27.
That had to be, you had to put in some awful long hours then, didn't you?
Oh, God, yeah.
You were taking chickens and turkeys up on Front Street, were you?
Front Street. We'd go up in the Adirondacks and up around Watertown and get our turkeys. Load the big diamond tee up with turkeys, and then we'd bring them back home down here on the Mumby Road, and then we'd put them on different trucks, and a lot of them went to Buffalo and a lot of them went to Rochester. And when we wasn't doing that, we drew chickens out of Virginia. We brought the fryers. We bring out of Virginia, Delaware, and Maryland. But usually every Monday morning we'd have to go out around to the farms around here, and we'd pick up enough for a load of the heavy laying hens that quit laying and like that, you know. We'd have, oh God, I don't know. We'd have the truck full of big diamond tea with the overshot on, and we'd about 10 o'clock at night, Monday night, we were all ready to leave, and then we drive all night down New York City and get down there about 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning and dump our load, leave our load of heavy fowl down there in New York, and then go on over into Virginia or Delaware. And then that would be Tuesday morning. Thursday, Wednesday night, we drive all day Tuesday, and then Wednesday nights, Tuesday night, I'm missing a day here. We'd be over in Virginia, and then we'd stay in the hotel overnight, and then get up and then load up Wednesday morning and get our load of chickens together down there Wednesday, and leave down there Wednesday night. We'd be back home here Thursday morning. So we only slept one night in bed. The other time we just got by what we could in the truck. The only night we slept in bed was that one night
down in Virginia.
Tuesday night down in Virginia.
How fast would that truck go?
Oh God, that truck would go. Oh God, that truck, we used to roll that thing along 65.
Really?
Oh God, yeah. Big diamond teeth.
Wow.
Oh yeah. They had the big overshot on there, the big built right out to the front bumper.
Hmm.
Yeah, some of them diamond tees. God, we borrowed one time. We had to borrow one. Fred and I, the truck we had on the way down, the rod was going out. So Stuart said, keep on going with it and get down as far as you can, and then we leave it down there and we'll have it fixed. So when we got down there to the broker, where our broker was, we told him that our truck was on the blink. Well, he said, I got one here you guys can take back with you, and then bring it back next week when you come down, and by that time your truck will be ready.
Uh-huh.
And I can remember that thing. And, my God, it had, I don't know how many gears it had in it, but we was on one stretch of road there, and I said to Fred, I'm going to let her out and see what she did. I remember way up here in the corner, I stuck her way up there in the corner, and my God, that thing, just like a jet, that thing would fly. I never drove such a truck in my life.
Now you had crates. All the fowl were in crates,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Why were they all up there around Watertown? What was the big attraction out?
Why, the turkeys around Watertown is the climate. Something about the climate. It's ideal turkey country. And they don't, the turkeys out there, they don't provide no shelter for them. They roost right out in the open.
Really?
Outside roost, outside, they up off the ground, about 4 foot off the ground. They'd have all these poles built out of poles, and then turkeys would roost on them poles every night and stay out in all kinds of weather, and they done great. They never lost a turkey from sickness or nothing. It's ideal.
Were they fenced in?
No, not really. Not really. A lot of the big dairy farmers, they always had a couple, 3,000 head of turkeys.
Huh.
Yeah, all the big dairy farms up there.
How'd you catch? Did they catch them and then hit them?
We caught them.
You caught them.
We'd have to catch them and put them in a crate. 4 or 5. We had the regular big turkey crates, you know.
Did you have big heavy gloves? Because those would be scratching, wouldn't they?
Well, yeah, we had gloves, but no. Once you know how to handle them, we grab them by the leg quick and just watch so the spurs don't rake you. And of course they're going to flop and everything, and manure flops around pretty good. When you get down, your clothes are pretty well. When manure splattered. Oh yeah. But yeah, and then a lot of times we would load them right up there and directly we'd leave Watertown and take them directly right into Buffalo. Not.
Was Route 81 there then?
I don't hardly think so.
So you had to pick your way down through the towns.
Yeah.
The thruway wasn't there.
The thruway, no.
So you took 104?
104, I guess so, yeah.
Okay.
104. Yeah, 104.
You doing this in the wintertime?
Yeah, around through November and December and probably about January, that petered out. The turkeys, after the holidays was over, the turkey season petered out.
Well, you must have run into some pretty bad weather, didn't you?
Oh yeah, oh God, yes. Up there, yeah, around next up to Watertown there one day. That morning, Chippy Forbes was loading turkeys out there in the farmer's barnyard there, and I said to one of the boys, he had 2 big sons, and they weren't overly dressed, and I said to one of the boys, how cold is it this morning? He said, it's 32 below. I said, 32 below, yeah. And we was out there loading turkeys at 32 below. That's cold.
Yeah, yeah.
32 below.
Now you worked hard, but Stewart paid you pretty good, didn't he?
Well, yeah, we got for what other people was paying, we got pretty good, you know, for what you could get anywhere else. Yeah.
Now, how long would it take you to load one of those big trucks?
Oh, probably 3 hours, 2 hours and a half, 3 hours. Yeah.
Hmm. Did you eat in little diners, or where'd you eat?
We ate mostly in diners.
Were you still working there when my father worked for him for a winter or two?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So we had Forbes, we had Gysels, we had Royers. Anybody else work for him?
Yeah, Frank Palmer.
Okay.
Frank Palmer used to drive. He used to go down to New York a lot. Frank Palmer and...
When you say go to New York, did you go to public market or?
No, it was, no, it wasn't the public market. It was, what would you call it? It was all it was just poultry.
Okay.
Where we went. It was, I remember the address very well. It was 33rd Street and 3rd Avenue. So it was right in the heart of Long Island City. I forget what they did call it now, but it was a poultry terminal.
Okay.
Nothing but poultry. And them trucks would be in there, we would be in there. And trucks from Delaware and trucks from Maryland would all be in there with chickens. So it was a regular poultry terminal.
Them ending up where? Philadelphia and Washington and Baltimore.
I suppose, sure.
Now, why would they send poultry up to here from Virginia by truck? Why wouldn't they use train back in those days?
Well, that I don't know.
It worked better. Time was better with the trucks.
I imagine.
Okay.
Yeah. Because you see, we could be up here and, well, we'd leave down there in the middle of the afternoon, like a lot of times we could leave down there at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and you see, we'd pull in here, that would be Wednesday afternoon, and we'd be in here about 5 o'clock Thursday morning. We'd drive all night. So yeah, I imagine it was, you know, the time, well, that would be 12, 14 hours we was on the road.
Were there 3 guys in the truck or 2?
Just two.
2 of you. So one would drive while one would sleep?
Sleep, yeah.
You ever have any bad accidents?
I was never in one, but Rennie and Fred one time, they were up in Alpine, up in the Adirondacks, and about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they were up there, they were going to go get turkeys. They were going to get a load of turkeys. I don't think they had any turkeys out. No, I guess they were going to. And anyway, I think my brother was asleep. This is 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was the day before Christmas, or a couple of days before Christmas it was. And Fred, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he fell asleep, and he ran into the tree with the truck. He had a brand new Dodge.
This is Fred Royer.
Fred Royer, and it wasn't a full-size truck. It was a smaller size truck, probably what they call a ton truck or something. We couldn't get, it didn't hold a lot of chicken. It probably, I guess if you got 100, probably 100, if you had 125, 150 coops, was about all it would hold. It wasn't one of our big jobs. And so Fred broke his ankle, and my brother, Rennie, he got cut in the head. So they spent Christmas Day in Watertown Hospital.
Could have been worse, couldn't it?
Worse, yeah.
Especially with a small truck like that.
Small truck. Yeah, Fred fell asleep.
I bet Pappy wasn't happy about that.
He wasn't. He wrecked it. The truck was wrecked. It sat down there, and it sat down there by the barn bank underneath that tree there. It sat there on the ground for 10 years. You asked about your dad. He can remember sitting there. They didn't do nothing with it. They towed it home, and they backed it in there by the barn hill underneath the tree, and it sat there for 12 years.
Why would they tow it home if they weren't going to do anything with it?
I don't know. I guess maybe he figured he'd fix it up later, but the thing was wrecked.
Now, was Pappy on the phones buying and selling all these?
Pretty much so, all the time. Yeah. Yeah, he was, yeah, of course, he had all these connections down in New York, you know, and we used to take a lot of chickens, they went down to Liberty.
Okay.
Liberty,
Yeah.
New York, down, that's a Jewish town, you know.
Hmm.
And, yeah, a lot of, yeah, back in the 30s and through the early 40s, a lot of them chickens went down to Liberty. He was always, every week, he was sending at least one truck down to Liberty. That used to be Raymond Royer's job. That was Raymond's job. He would drive the truck down to Liberty. All through the...
Was that a better run than the other ones?
I think so. Probably a little easier.
Yeah.
You know, just down Liberty, just, you know, down Old Binghamton there.
Huh.
Yeah.
Is Ramey still alive?
Yes, but he very bad. He don't know anybody.
Oh.
You know, Gordon Cripps says he goes down and see him, but he says he don't know him. So he's very bad, very bad.
Now, Gert died, didn't she?
Gert died, yeah.
Uh-huh. Well, I'm looking at the clock and we have about 3 or 4 minutes left of our 2 hours. The tape is going to run out here. Is there anything about local history that you thought I was going to ask that I forgot to ask? Anything about Reed's Corners back in the 30s, 40s, or 50s that you think would be interesting?
Well, I can't think of it right now, Steve. No, I don't believe. I think I've covered all the bases pretty well where I can.
I think you did too. Last thing we didn't really cover Washburn's gas station, or Conklin, or Washburn, wasn't it? This wasn't this building next to the church, the garage? Wasn't it out by the road years ago when Dorothy Spohr was a little girl?
Well, there was a gas station down here, this side of the hotel. That's where the gas station was.
Okay, who ran that?
That I can't tell you. I know Lee Brown. He went to school with me up here. He was a kid about 14. He was pumping. He ran the gas station. He pumped gas, but he lived here in the little house right by the bridge.
Okay.
The little house right here now.
Yep.
That's where he lived. Lee Brown.
Where Jordans live.
Yep.
Okay.
And Lee, that had to be back in the mid-30s, 36, 37.
Okay.
And Lee was a kid about 14, and
he ran the gas station.
he ran the little gas station. There was 1 or 2 pumps there.
Okay. Did he run it after school or?
After school and on weekends.